More now on the Abbott government's second budget, and with me is the Social Services Minister, Scott Morrison. Mr Morrison, thanks very much for your time. This $3.5 billion childcare package, it is dependent on the family payment changes getting through the Senate. How are the prospects on that looking?
Well, we've started those discussions. I've been in discussions with them for some time, just as I have been on the pension changes that we released last week as well. And look, we'll proceed with these discussions. We're putting forward a very responsible position here, which says we want to invest $3.5 billion in low to middle income families, families who are vulnerable, disadvantaged. We want to do that through childcare support, which helps them be in work, stay in work, get in work, study, all of these things. And to do that, we want to make savings in the social services portfolio rather than go out and tax people. So we think that's a responsible thing to do, and we'll work that through.
But Labor blocked it last year, as did the crossbench, these changes to the family payments, the halting of the family tax benefit Part B, for example, when children hit 6. Do you accept their argument that children don't get less expensive beyond the age of 6? Why would the government target that age?
Well, the measure that was introduced last year was all about recognising the fact that, yes, that children don't get less expensive as they grow up, but they do go to school when they turn 6. And they are in a different situation when they're 6 through to 12, as indeed they are when they go to high school, in terms of the support for people to be at home and providing that support to them when they're there. And when we spend $20 billion on family tax benefits now, the Labor government ripped over their budget and forward estimates over the 6 years that were there some $15 billion out of that over the course of their government. Now, $20 billion a year, we're spending currently around $7 billion a year on childcare, and what we're doing here is putting more investment into helping families have the choice, because frankly they just have to be in paid employment for many of them. They just don't have a choice, and they're denied the ability to do that because they end up just working for childcare rather than childcare working for them.
What about the situation of the activity requirements changing? Because clearly some couples, some parents aren't out of work out of choice. They're not stay-at-home parents out of choice. They want to work. So if the childcare subsidies are reduced, doesn't that then make it harder for individuals to find jobs because they're at home caring for their kids because they can't afford childcare?
No, because the activity test recognises people's efforts to go and find work through the employment program. So if you're looking for work, if you're in work, if you're studying to improve your skills to be in a job, and it even recognises formal volunteering roles as well. All of that is covered off in the activity test. This is all about helping people get onto that rung of paid employment where they really.
But you need to show your willingness to look for a job.
You've got to be in there looking for a job, and that's why we would provide support in those circumstances. Now, for those on under 65,000, we've said very clearly we will retain that 2-day access a week to early childhood learning. 2 6-hour sessions. If the sector wants to provide it in a different way, that's up to them. But 12 hours a week. I mean, kids go to school for 6 hours a day, not 12 hours a day, and we're providing for 2 6-hour sessions per week for children from families on low incomes.
The biggest backflip in this, though, has to be the paid parental leave approach, because the Prime Minister only recently was saying that families should get 6 months at their full replacement wage. Now the Treasurer and the government are suggesting that people are double dipping.
They are.
But the architect of the scheme, one of the advisors to the government on it quoted in the Herald saying this was the way it was designed, a modest scheme to complement private sector ones.
We disagree. If you're working for a small business and you're not getting paid parental leave, why should you not get the advantage of 2 paid parental leave schemes? Why can someone working for a big bureaucracy get 1 paid parental leave scheme and then turn around to the taxpayer and ask for another one? Or working for a large corporate? It's just about fairness.
But a large corporate that gives you 6 weeks, a large corporate that gives someone 6 weeks as opposed to 6 months, if they pay you, 6 weeks, you lose the government paid parental leave scheme.
You get the difference between what you might have got from your employer. If that's still less than what you've got from the government, you'll get the top up. The point is here is everyone gets the same thing. If you work for a big employer, you shouldn't be able to get twice the paid parental leave of someone who doesn't. That's just not fair.
But the Prime Minister was talking about 6 months of paid parental leave scheme, and how was that fair when it was paid on the individual's wage?
We're not proceeding with that scheme. That's old news, Kieran. That one's gone.
But the same principle applies, and it's been quite a sharp turnaround in thinking, because the Prime Minister was going to pay people on their wage. How was that fair when you're going to go to a big corporate, a bureaucracy, you earn 150 grand, you got that money?
Everyone was getting the same thing under that scheme. Everyone was getting it based on the same entitlement around their wage. What this is a flat scheme. That's what we've gone with. That's what we all decided to do when we walked away from the other scheme. scheme, and you shouldn't be able to double dip just because your employer gives you a generous program. The taxpayer shouldn't then come and top that up twice. We're making sure everyone's getting the same.
Sometimes the employers don't give generous programs. I know of a lawyer in Canberra, she gets 6 weeks. How is that generous?
Well, she will get the balance through the paid parental leave scheme, which is provided by the taxpayer. She will get the same thing as someone working for the bakery. And that's the important thing here. We're getting rid of what is an inequity. And frankly, in many cases, I think is a rort.
So the Prime Minister's had a road to Damascus conversion on all of this.
No, this is
in the
about
last
fairness.
month.
No, that was a different scheme. We didn't proceed with that scheme. We're now dealing with a scheme now of 18 weeks, and everyone gets the same 18 weeks, whether they get it from their employer or they get it from the taxpayer.
But that was the argument to the Prime Minister all along, and it took him years to realise it.
You don't get to double dip.
Okay.
That's the point, and it's an integrity measure. It's going to save the budget $1 billion, and I think everyone who doesn't get to double dip will go, fair enough.
Okay, let's finish with this report today in The Australian suggesting that you discussed with the Prime Minister last week your ambition for the Treasury position. Is that right?
It's absolute rubbish. It is complete, absolute rubbish. I mean, I don't know what people are on in this town with all this nonsense going on, but this is total and utter nonsense.
Okay, we'll leave it there. That's pretty emphatic.
It is. Thanks, Kieran.